Hi, I'm your host, Attorney Michael Potter, and welcome to part one of our two-part segment on the most common estate planning mistakes. Okay, this first one is really easy because most people think that they don't really need an estate plan. Why is that? Because they believe the common myth that estate planning is only for rich people. And I'm not rich, therefore I don't need an estate plan. That's not true. Without an effective estate plan, the assets that you have accumulated during life might very well go to the very people you don't want to have them. Another common mistake that we see all the time is where you've got, say, a person or a couple that owns a business and they fail to include the business inside the estate plan with the proper tools so that the allocation among their children is fair to the children who worked in the business and to the children who did not work in the business. That can take some extra planning, and that's why it's so important to work with an estate planning expert that really knows what they're doing. You know, another common mistake that I've seen quite a few times is where people leave cash or an insurance policy to their children or their heirs, and then the money is gone. It's much better to use a trust as a distribution vehicle for that money so that it can be parceled out and allocated out over a longer period of time so that the beneficiaries get it and they don't blow it. Now, with a trust, you have a trustee who is a fiduciary and is bound to follow your trust instructions. So if you would like those assets distributed slowly over a period of time, you can do that and know that the property is protected before it is distributed to your beneficiaries. Now, when I craft a trust, I always like to include some form of spendthrift provision. This prevents a beneficiary from going out and trying to get a loan against their future inheritance using the trust as collateral. The next most common mistake is the failure to update the estate plan. You know, I've seen this many times. Probably the classic is a couple that had set up their wills back in the 1960s, and the wills were still legally valid, but they were so out of date, they were useless. For example, the guardian for their children, no longer necessary. The children had grown up, and they had children of their own. The person that they had named as an executor had long ago died and was not available to serve as executor. Plus, they had changed states. They had moved from the state where they had their will originally done to a completely different state where that will was no longer valid. And all of the assets had changed over time. So it's important and necessary to keep your estate plan up to date. Let me give you another example of where this can make a big difference by failing to update the plan. I had a lady who attended one of my seminars, and I learned later that she was the granddaughter in a case where the grandmother had planned to leave the estate to her daughter and her existing granddaughter. But at the time of the lady's death, the daughter was pregnant with another child, and therefore that second granddaughter was left out. That's the lady that I met at my seminar. A lot of planning can go awry by failure to keep it updated, so I recommend you don't make that mistake. Well, this has been part one of our two-part series on the most common estate planning mistakes. I'm attorney Michael Potter, and I look forward to seeing you in our next segment.